Hey, welcome to this edition of Thrive. As always, I hope it finds you well, and know that I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to hopefully encourage and inspire you as you seek to be all that you can be. Of course, the topic on everybody's lips at the moment, isn't it? These new COVID cases and the circumstances surrounding how they came about. Um, I think it's exposed how complacent we've become, and as a consequence, how slack our processes really were. And I understand that, people are looking for answers and people demanding answers, and rightly so in many ways. But I think at the same time, you and I need to point a finger at ourselves, and that I think all of us have become a little bit complacent, haven't we? After 12 weeks of being in lockdown, it was just so good to be able to pick life up again. And I think we were so busy looking forward and so busy enjoying the benefits of our freedom, so to speak, that we didn't really give a second thought to what we'd been through and why. And as a consequence, we'd all let our guard down in some way, I think. And I say that because I think it serves as a timely reminder for you and I to think about our lives against the bigger picture of faith and life. The scriptures contain lots of warnings about complacency, don't they? I think of probably the most obvious one is in the book of Revelation, that if you've been around the church any period, you know well, where in Revelation chapter 3, Jesus speaks to the church of Laodicea. Laodicea, of course, it's an Asia Minor, what we would call modern Turkey. And in that, Jesus addresses them and he says, I know your works. You're neither hot nor cold. I wish you were one or the other, but because you're not, I'm going to spit you out. And of course, it sounds really harsh, doesn't it? This whole image of Jesus just rejecting something or somebody, a city, because it's neither hot nor cold. But I think to fully understand it, we really probably need to be a little bit aware of the circumstances of Laodicea. I don't know what you know about it as a city, but its reputation was of a city that was very wealthy. It was very independent. In fact, there was a major earthquake around 60 AD from memory, and a lot of the cities in that area devastated, and Rome actually offered finance to help rebuild them. And they turned it down because they didn't want to be beholden to anybody. They wanted to be self-sufficient, and because of their financial reserves, because of their prosperity, they rebuilt themselves, and they took pride in the fact that they didn't need anybody from outside to help them do that. And I think that helped give rise to that sense of complacency, because they had the sense of security based in their wealth. But I think there was another factor that made them a little bit complacent as well, because the one thing that they didn't have, which they needed, of course, was good water. Everybody needs a good water supply. And this city drew its water from two other places. It drew from Colossae, which we know in the scriptures, and it drew another source of water from another nearby city called Hierapolis. Hierapolis was known for its rich hot springs. People would go there for healing. People with aches and ailments would go and sit in the pools, and it would just help ease away some of those things. The same as you and I would sit in a spa pool or go to some of those mineral pools around New Zealand or in other countries. From Colossae, it got its drinking water, which was cold and pure and clean, and they would pipe it in. Of course, when you do that, what happens is that because of the distances involved and because of they were using lead for their pipes, the water was neither one thing nor the other when it arrived. It wasn't really fit for drinking, although they drank it. It wasn't cool and clear and refreshing as it was when it came from Colossae, and neither was it hot and therapeutic as when it came from Hierapolis. And so that's why Jesus says you're neither one thing nor the other. At least I could respect that. I could respect it if you were one or the other, but you're not. You're lukewarm, and so I'm going to spit you out. And I say that because I think that Laodicea is a picture, I think, for many of us in life. Certainly, I think for many of us, if we were to step back and to think about how we live. You see, so many of us draw our needs from other things, don't we? Just as Laodicea drew its drinking water from other places, but in the process it lost its real value. I think so often what happens is that living in the world in which we do, it's so easy to draw our security, to draw what we need without really thinking about what we're doing. And as a consequence, it has a tendency to lull us into this false sense of security, of complacency. We become almost self-sufficient. Like we read the scriptures and we read of the promises of God and we read how we should be approaching God and how we should live out of that. But we've become so familiar with living out of our own resources, of drawing what we need from the world around us, that in many areas of our faith and life we've become complacent. And so I want to challenge you in these times as we are thinking around complacency regarding COVID, to think around complacency regarding your faith, to think around how you perhaps might need to change some things in order to recover again what the scriptures talk about as our first love. You know, a good place to start is by asking yourself, in what way have you drawn from the attitudes and the behaviours of the world without being aware of it? You've absorbed these things without really taking into consideration how they might be shaping or influencing your faith or the way in which you perceive the world. Another thing that you might ask yourself is, if you were to take seriously the warning of Jesus to the church, don't be lukewarm, don't be complacent, be hot or cold, but just don't be lukewarm. What things need to shift in your life? You know, I think the greatest tragedy for most of us is that we're neither hot nor cold when it comes to Jesus. We're neither hot nor cold when it comes to our faith. We're neither passionate about God or we're not. We haven't turned away either. And Jesus says, I can respect either one of those. I prefer you to be hot. But at least if you're cold, you've thought about what it is you're turning away from. But so many are just lukewarm. Well, I go to church. I read the Bible sometimes. I love Jesus. And we're neither one thing nor the other. And maybe now's a good time to change that. You know, as we're trying to put in place more robust systems to protect the health and the well-being of our city, our cities and our nation. Why don't we look at what we need to do to put in more robust practices into our lives to protect our faith, to enhance our faith, to grow our faith, that we might live more abundantly out of it. So I want to encourage you, take a step back, give some time and think around these things and make some changes where they need to be made, that you might become more hot, more passionate, more alive with the things. That's my encouragement to you. So I look forward to any comments that you want to leave in the comments section, and know that I appreciate this time. As I've said, I don't take it for granted. And so until next time, God bless you.